Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. All of you, welcome to the Seat of the Pants Studios because today, it being Wednesday, it must mean that it's World Building Wednesday. And this week, I decided to pick the theme of The Last of Us, trying to pick something in pop culture that we can use to enhance our tabletop role playing game experiences and talk about it just openly, honestly, and just having some fun. Yes, hello. Welcome to all the fun guys here. Yeah. Um, yeah, we're gonna have a little bit of fun with zombies and cordyceps and funguses and all that good stuff. There's of course we're going to absolutely positively talk about some pop culture references, the movies and television, even other role playing games. Um, the 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 apocalypse that is the zombie infection that we like to use as an allegory for the downfall of society and possibly even the rebuilding of society and um, the importance of society and governance versus our own personal instincts and things of that nature, which had very much to do with the television show version and the gaming version. The video game version had to deal with this as well in terms of when you have when there's almost nothing left. What's important, and it really was a show about the last of us as a society. So allow me, yeah, never hurts to widen your horizon. Yep. Hey, Druden, and I saw what you posted in the Discord there. Took a look at the game rules there, Druden. I really appreciate that. By the way, down in the doobly doo, you can, if you would like to participate with and talk with the other brilliant individuals that make me look good, please do go down there. Join the Discord, all that good stuff, and have some good fun. Okay, so allow me to present to you a thesis of sorts. So as I said in our opening, that any kind of post-apocalyptic setting, of course, ones with zombies, since we're going to be talking about that, mindless. Um, there's a amongst other general fears we have as a society, the idea of returning back from the dead and you're not the same is a huge fear. And what do we bring back with us? You know, when we see our loved ones and the people that we have connections with, but their minds aren't there, but their bodies are there. And that is a very real fear that people have. And the fantasy of a zombie apocalypse is basically that fear writ large, right? And what do? You know, are you the type of person who could supplant their feelings for someone to survive? And if you are that kind of person, what do other people think of you? That you could take a spiked baseball bat to the face of your grandparents because they want to eat your face. You know, what kind of person, is that type of person? So what do you become when you are that type of person? But in fantasy gaming, especially in Dungeons and Dragons and other fantasy games, the idea of zombie spores or fungus or something is absolutely positively in our purview. So we could even use the idea that there are one of the classic humanoid monstrous races were myconids, but there's so many after that. And what happens when they are given sentience, or maybe it's their fault, or maybe they've mutated. So there's also the possibility of that as well. Yeah, Vince has honestly never played the game or watched the show yet, but I like the concepts. Exactly. And it's just another listen, there's not while some of the interactions with the zombie spore infected, let's see if I can get some imagery here. Zombie infected individuals may be strange. For example, in the role playing game, wow, in the video game, there are different stages of the infection as the the spores spread inside the human beings, and so there are different. Like for example, the beginning stage is that they're runners, right? These aren't zombies that like shamble and walk or whatever. They run after. I mean, they're full on um, running, dashing, tackling, that kind of thing. But as time goes on and it spreads inside of the human bodies, the you can see more of the spread as it starts to grow, and they're eventually like the cordyceps uh, ant zombie virus that makes the causes the ants to heads to grow and expand and explode and spread to the other ants. The same thing happens to the human beings, where you have this like exploded skull, brainish level layers of mushrooms kind of thing in their skulls, and they become like known as clickers, and because they can't see but they make sounds like bats to navigate, and then it the clickers kind of corral the runners, and then eventually the clickers turn into bloaters when the whole body starts to get to the point where they're basically about to bloat and explode, and then they air quotes die by turning into they're no longer human, and then their bodies just like grow up against buildings and things like that and corners and stuff like that. It's pretty nasty looking, but yeah. Yep. Mike says zombie spores, the one that kills and animates ants, applying that to people is terrifying. Yeah, the ant virus is pretty nasty. I wonder if there's some imagery we can get. Let's see. I've got a bunch of things up. Ant zombie fungus. Are there any images? Because it's pretty. Yeah. The images aren't too good, but we'll see what happens. We'll see. Mm, 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 mm. Anyway, so amongst the the reason why it's called an ant zombie virus is because the ant continues to move and act and interact with the other ants, even though technically the ant's brain is dead, and it's being like remote controlled by the fungus to spread to the other ants. So yeah, pretty nasty. Yeah, Vince says a fun fungi fact. Uh Pestilus Pestilus Teopsis microspora likes to eat plastic. There's the amount of knowledge I don't have about about fungus would fill the ocean. Yeah, and what unfortunately what great things to pull from nature, you know. Yeah. Juden's like better than any therapy. Yeah. Bashing the heads Bashing in the heads of parents that have become zombies that have been rather abusive in life might be kind of cathartic. Ouch. Only you, Druden, would find the good out of that part. Like, ooh, like batter up. Time to get that payback on family and friends, right? You've always owed me money. Like, oh man. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, so Mike says, well, here's a legit question regarding the standard zombie premise. If zombies are driven by the virus to propagate the virus, why do they eat potential carriers? Uh, you know what? That's always been it's a fuzzy trope, right? Because and it depends on the kind of zombies that you want to have. Because hey, it's World Building Wednesday, so we can do whatever we want. So we talked a little bit about the trope of like zombies wanting to eat brains or devour people, but are they biters? Are they trying to spread something through an infection through biting? We've seen that. uh, we've When we've moved past zombie curses and irradiated zombies back in like the 60s and 70s and such, we've gotten more into diseases. And we have the classic, um, the NPC gets bit but wants to hide it from everyone in the group, and then it's just a matter of waiting for the tension to build when that person starts to change and shift. Um, we've seen that trope is done. That trope is overdone, and of course it ruins the everyone's back in safety. Maybe they're in a walled community, or they're traveling to regions where the zombies can't get to them. And of course, you have an interloper inside because they've been infected. And um, that there's nothing wrong with using that trope, but it does kind of beg the question, like Mike says, like mentions, like, well, wait a minute, if the point is to spread it, why are they trying to kill people? Why wouldn't they just bite individuals and then move on, knowing that they've been infected? And in the Last of Us TV show, they kind of, I mean, there is a little bit of like, yeah, they're just trying to spread it around, and in the TV show, they show how they are spreading it by having like little fungal tendrils come out of their mouths to try to go into the mouths of other people. It's pretty nasty. Mike's second legit question is: if zombies desire flesh, why don't they turn on each other? That was answered in World War Z, where the zombies were clashing like waves. They were moving so fast and over top of each other, but they were actually avoiding individuals that had terminal illnesses. It was a way, and eventually in World War Z, it was a way to fight off, to become invisible against the other zombies. So why not? Why not use that? The End King says because the virus inside of them knows they won't spread to a new host that way. And there could be a division, right? And this is where, in my opinion, this is where exploration really becomes the thing inside of world building and making your world feel alive. That the player characters may find out this information and then kind of use it or twist it to their advantage. And even if they can't twist it to their advantage immediately, they can then use that knowledge to move on. The idea that, well, there's some kind of concoction or spore or behavior that you can use to become invisible. We've seen this in zombie apocalypses where maybe if the humans are quiet, they can move amongst them or around them, or they're ignored. Maybe they smell different, or loud noises. If we create a louder noise off to the left, they will go after the loud noise. Heck, even shooting an ally in the leg and being like, "Hey, I ain't got to be the fastest. All I got to do is be faster than you," and then watching their allies, drop behind and get devoured by the zombies or something while they move on. It depends, and it depends on what kind of zombie side effects you're talking about. Like with the 28 days, 28 weeks later version, they, essentially they were rage zombies. They would burn themselves out. And in your world building, could people wait out the, say, what, however it's spreading? Is decomposition a thing that happens to the undead, that if you wait long enough, they will completely decompose? And all it takes is just finding a safe haven. Is there a time factor, or do zombies live technically forever until they become skeletons? And then are they just animated skeletons, right? Yep. Vince says, I mean, oh, ooh, ooh. Vince says, I mean, there could be zombies that simply are trying to infect, and once one zombie did bite you, the others would shy away from you. And could you imagine using that as a mechanical feature in your world, right? Hey, you're bit by okay, seat of the pants studio here, right? You're bit by a zombie. You have you roll a die or something. That number is hidden. That's how many rounds or whatever, or minutes or hours, doesn't matter. It there's a random, from the point of infection till a random period of time in the future. You are essentially invisible. You're immune. They shy away from you, but you don't know when you're going to transform. You'll lose your character. That would be pretty interesting to play with. I mean, now you didn't you don't have to hide it. You could make it above board. Everyone knows, and you have a resource that begins to tick away, and you expend a resource to prevent you from exposing yourself. Maybe. Um, that also could be a thing where I've got 6 points of resolve left on my character sheet, and what will happen when my 6 points are going? Well, you lose your character, and then you start ticking points off and stuff. That would be pretty interesting. Oh, Vince, boom, boop. Yeah, zombies finding out who is an ally by taste. Just take a bite to find out. Yeah, everybody's sniffing and licking each other. Although we've seen zombies do a little bit of the proverbial sniff in the face kind of thing. Mike says, "Here's why I ask: if zombies only target uninfected living flesh, then there has to be a decision made by the virus. What is its goal? If it's flesh, then all flesh counts. If it's infection, then eating the living is impossible. Um, Unless there's some, it, unlike a okay, do diseases like bacteria and viruses, which we consider to be brainless, do they infect unliving flesh? Like, does the flu virus? I'm just making this up. Does the flu virus affect someone that has passed away? Right? Do we really know that? I don't know. Does it make a decision as to what kind of biological system it goes into if it's specialized for like humanity? Which also brings up another. This isn't a pet peeve per se, but this is a something that I've noticed in fantasy gaming, and that nearly 99% of the undead tend to be humanistic, and there are very few variations off of like elves and dwarves and gnomes and halflings and dragonborn and that kind of stuff. Like, do they become the exact same undead, or could are dwarves immune to the virus that affects human beings? Like, when a human being gets a head cold, our dwarves are just like, oh, the stupid fragile human beings always getting sick. you know um is that a thing? We'll get into red markets because I think this is a very interesting. I don't own this game, and now I think I want to get it. But red markets is a particular role playing game of economic poverty, and it's pretty interesting. I've listened to the podcast. I don't know why I didn't own the game, but yeah. Mike says, "What happens when the virus mutates or evolves? Viruses in our world do. Yeah. Would sentience follow? Would zombies eventually become a hive mind? In The Last of Us, like the unexplained and kind of mysterious way that there are fungal hives that are, it seems that if you affect a fungal hive in one place, it communicates to the others. Yeah, hell yeah, it could mutate and become a hive mind, and how scary would it be for the PCs to fight a bunch of pretty easy to kill no name zombies in one location, but knowing that that interaction gives the hive mind all the information it needs to fight the PCs. When the hordes start spreading and they start transforming, and the player characters know, hey, we've got. I'm going to go back to the 28 days later. The PCs know if we survive 28 days, we're fine. But during that time, the countdown keeps going up. And could you imagine, like, let's take classic fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons. If your CR level keeps going every single day, the CR level creeps up. 1, 2, 3. Day 4, it's 4 CR4 creatures. Day 5, CR5. I mean, what a way to mechanize the what a cool way to mechanize the danger that is building for the PCs to accomplish a mission before, hey, yes, they could wait it out, but they really can't, because they've got to rescue some nobles or go back for their family or get the ancient artifact. I don't know, the Rod of Orcus or something that the local constable now has and can command these you know dangerous hordes or whatever. Mike says, taking that further, imagine a full zombie world generations later, a world of undead societies where logical, sentient zombies elevated by a master virus has moved past eating the living. Reason? The zombie wants its old society back. Yeah, it's like we don't have any. It's always the vampire curse, right? We're gonna take over the world by making everybody vampires, and it's like, yeah, but who do you eat off of then? Yeah, the zombie virus is like we need to have farms and breed people. Yeah, I love it, Mike. um, the virus is the refugee. Oh wow, ouch. Now, what is in world building Wednesday, we usually take this concept and spread it out. What if there are, strangely enough, competing zombified origins that different factions are using? So, stealing a little bit from you here, Vince, and I apologize for doing this. But I think your creativity is really good. But what if there is a literal insectoid hive that if you stick the insect into the brain of of a humanoid person, that person becomes part of the hive, and that spreads. But that's one version of it, and then you have this cordyceps kind of thing that might be out in the wild, and it's turning people into zombies. And then you have the classic necromantic wizard lich or something that's using a ritual, I don't know, some kind of bloodletting ritual or mummified ritual or whatever to turn people. And it would be pretty nasty to have competing factions using different methods, but they're creating the same different origins, but the same uh, enemies. Vince says, "Fun fact, fun fungi fact number two." Okay, okay, here we go. Um, Armorillia Ostoye is the largest life form on Earth. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Life form on Earth with around 4 square miles or 10 square kilometers in size, and is at least 4,000 years old. That's what I'm talking about. I didn't know the name of it, but yeah, I mean, what a amazing thing in our real world, and then take that into a fantasy realm, right? That's taking that fungus is almost like taking a fungus plant ooze kind of thing, and then taking it and twisting it and turning the volume up very high. That could be growing in the underdark. It could be growing in a dark forest or something. um, every time it takes somebody over, it's gaining its information and knowledge, and maybe it can speak in a weird psychic multi volumed voice kind of thing that's constantly trying to um, its intelligence keeps growing exponentially as it starts to envelop more. What is the zombie plant, the classic zombie plant in Dungeons and Dragons? Yellow, the yellow creeper and the young yellow fungus creeper, or whatever. It's like a yellow fungus plant creature that has spores, and its whole job is to infect passersby that are zombies to bring back more victims to feed its roots. I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. Everyone comes, they're like, "Who's your leader?" And it's like this like nasty looking tree with skeletal remains because it's the flesh is feeding its roots and stuff. Be awesome. It says, I mean, if it really is a fungus, the goal could simply be to compost as much biomass as possible. That's what fungi primarily do. Yeah, 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 yeah. Eh, eh, Heck, it could be our own fault, right? Every time you have a massive battle, and this could be a very good origin for these kind of things. Every time there's a massive battle, the dead bodies feed this thing, and humanity hasn't realized, like, every time we go to war with each other, we're feeding it. And then of course everyone else is like, no, you're just saying that because you're scared, we're not scared. And and hilarity ensues because the bloodshed keeps happening. The N King says, one thing I always wonder about zombies are how infectious are they? If you kill a zombie on the field, can you farm on that land? I wondered about that because there's always this fun concept of like, oh, well, can't we just have zombies do labor like you would have regular human beings? And it's like, I don't know if I want the undead finger in my drink serving, sitting on a promenade when looking at the sunset on a beach or something, and having like, garçon, garçon, there's something in my drink. Yes, your fingers in my drink. Right? It's like, yeah, can you really farm on it? Heck, I even wondered about the Underdark. Okay, follow me with this pretty ridiculous concept here, but um adventurers running around above land, necromancer, or hordes of zombies. You kill them, it goes into the ground. D- when zombies decompose, does that stuff seep down into the Underdark? So you have like, I don't know, Surf Neblin and Drow and other societies in the Underdark all pissed off because over time the zombified infected dust of the decomposed seeps down, and all the dwarves are looking up, and as they're picking like potatoes and beets and yams from above their heads, they're just like, oh, they ruined our crops again. you know as the potatoes start like moving around in the baskets as they start pick, I don't know, I always wondered, like, does it, like you guys are mentioning, like, how infectious is it? And if you kill a bunch of zombies on a field, like, do you have to burn that field, bringing in the druids to cleanse the field again? Does it take manual labor by human beings to actually reconsecrate or de, de deconsecrate? I don't, what would you excise? I don't know. Bless the field. I mean, there could be a whole multi-stepped industry to cleanse the world of where they've been to bring the world back to where it should be. Um, I mean, if a zombie infection moves starts to mutate from human beings to other monstrous creatures in the world, and then you have enclaves of where you have reluctance with dragons and giants and um, other monstrous humanoids or whatever sentient species going like, I don't like you and you don't like me, but we're hiding from the same enemies, you know. Anyway, the End King says a zombie hive mind reminds me of Cell by Stephen King. I don't know Cell. I know the movie The Cell, but I don't know Cell. Hmm. Zombie hive minds. That's nasty too. Vince says most zombies seems to have a blood vector to infect, aka, yep, you have to get infected material in a wound. Um, Also, how do you explain this? Most of 99% of the time we go wound, right? Hey, I'm bit. uh it got into a wound, but we even saw, like in the movie 28 days later, blood, a drop of infected blood, like that was more rabies. They're more enraged zombies. Some people are like, they're not zombies because they're not dead, they're just infected rage people, and then they burn their bodies out. But the same concept applies, right? Because one individual looked up and a drop of infected blood fell into his eye, and then he went into the conniption fits and then turned into, became a, their loved one, their mentor, or their parental figure, but turned into a rage zombie. Yeah, what blood doesn't necessarily need to be a vector if it's gets in their mouth or other orifices. In the Last of Us video game, it was more spores in the air, so you have like a lot of gas mask punk kind of stuff going on, so you don't breathe the stuff in. I mean, if zombies decompose at a certain point, they're going to bloat and then eventually dry out. And what if they blow away and they're dust on the wind? Is Does it continue on? That's pretty nasty. Vince says the machines from the Matrix are secretly undead who need human hosts. Yeah, maybe. Maybe, yeah. Steal that right away. Hell yeah. We always come up with ideas to steal, right? Um, Mike says, yeah, there was a zombie flower in first edition, second edition. A zombie of it would have a large blossom behind the head. Let's see if I can find it. I think it's called yellow mold. Is it yellow creeper? Creeper. D&D. Yellow musk creeper. There we go. Yellow musk creeper was the name of it. That was it was a plant that would make zombies to collect victims to feed its roots and its system. Yep, the yellow musk. It was a well, it was a double stat creature, right? It was a yellow musk species that then made yellow musk zombies. Uh, yep. Yeah. That was it. Yeah, and who's to say that? I mean, like just using the simple stats of this monster, who's to say that there isn't a faction that's like, hey, we are a druidic faction that's like this is a natural thing, and we're going to use it to eliminate our enemies, or maybe an assassins guild knows how to use this stuff, protect, covers their faces, blows it in the faces of their enemies, and then uses them and maybe uses them as agents or something. It would be pretty nasty for a regular NPC to spread this amongst a noble family to take down that bloodline or something, and then it gets out of hand. Vince mentions, how would you fight something like this? A giant fungus that has its mycelium spread over miles away that reach multiple meters underground. Even burning the whole land might not be enough. Oh, hell's yes. I love that. I love the idea of not being able to solve that right away. I mean, if it spreads that much, I mean, first of all, spreading PCs hate player characters absolutely hate having other enemies know anything and everything that they do. So, like the television show in Last of Us, the characters were careful not to disturb fungal spore. I guess you call them like outbursts, because if you disturbed one area, it would alert the rest of the the mycelium spread. And what a great environmental hazard to put about the player characters to say, "Hey, I'm going to make something up." The golden fronds. There's random golden fronds that are like these plant-like things that just sway in the wind and release spores or something. And if the player characters get near it, it's going to alert the enemy and roll 1d. Let me roll my lament configuration. You know, it 1d6 rounds. Here they come, and the PCs are like, do the absolute, long, drawn out, and it's just like, oh, we got to get the hell out of here. Creating their own random encounter uh, problems. Um, I think that would be a great idea. And then let's say it releases spores, so the PCs are like, cover your face, and then maybe some of the monsters that they've killed that are infected by spores start to rise again. Yeah, decontaminate is the word you're looking for. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, Mike says cast a deadly spell. Yeah, I remember that. A Cthulhu-esque movie set in the 50s where magic is real. Yeah, it was like a noir style detective movie. Anyway, had zombie workforces. Contractors with zombies could bid on anyone because their labor costs were zero. I remember that show or movie. Sorry, it was like a movie or something, and it was very noir, jazzy ish. Smoking cigars and stuff. Yeah. I love it. Other transmission types that could work. Vince says I use them for visitors. Okay, is parasite infection, like other life forms get inside the body, which I like. I like that idea for, especially for like an evil faction, right? Bandits, assassins, thieves guild or something. They kidnap you. They kidnap NPCs. They threaten them, and then they dangle the nasty thing into their ear or in their mouth, or goes in their nose, or I don't know, sucks out one of their eyes and whatever, something like that, right? There's also Vince mentions oral transmission, which is like through food or water you consume, which again, this is a great way to turn druidic type of cultists or whatever into your enemies, because how much do they think that that is a natural part of the natural order? Like, hey, let's say a food and or water source gets infected, And the druids are like, whatever, we're immune. Yeah, maybe you should have washed your hands, right? Uh, Pretty simple thing to do. It shouldn't have been an epidemic of not being able to wash your hands. Um, yeah, we've got the panacea for that. It's called soap. Then there's vector-borne transmissions. Vince goes on to say, similar to parasite infection, but it involves the life cycle of another life form. Meaning, maybe there's a society out there that is completely at home. Maybe there's something about their gut that there's they've never even seen what a zombie infection is, but when they die, there's something inside of their gut that causes other societies to become infected. But for them, they just eat the food and drink the water, and it's like whatever. We're just completely immune to it. Um, that in real life, there's a similarity to sickle cell, where the sickled cell prevented. Was it malaria? Come on, I know you guys know this. Was it like malaria? But the sickle cell itself is dangerous, but it prevented human beings at that time from being infected by something else, which would be pretty strange. Vince goes on to talk about droplet transmission, like small droplets through the air. That could be through like a mist, which would be pretty nasty if the PCs fight zombies that are that have another. They are second stage dangers. You slice it open and it sprays out particulates, and you don't want to swallow that. Vince goes on to talk about fomite transmissions, liquids on objects you touch and then get into your eyes or mouth indirectly. Uh, that was nastily expressed in. It's why you shouldn't sneeze. Use your hands to cover your mouth when you sneeze and cough. It was nastily expressed visually in an episode of Mythbusters, and they decided to play a card game, and they sprayed something on one person's hands or object or something, and then they used it under black light. And how many times do we unconsciously rub our eyes? I rub my nose all the time when I'm sitting by the computer because there's like static electricity, and I can feel it on my skin sometimes. So I can feel the dust every once in a while. And so, how many times do I rub my eye, rub your ears? Then you go to touch something, and then somebody else touches that same thing. Yeah, and then Vince goes on like sexual transmission. I mean, exactly. And uh, we're not going to get descriptive, but bodily fluids can be expressed in more than there's almost there is an art form to the spreading of bodily fluids from one individual to the other, in all kinds of gender and positional things and stuff, right? Which it doesn't necessarily mean tradition has nothing to do with it. Yeah. And then Vince talks about the End King says, "Oh, gotta go. Hope to watch later." Oh, thanks, man. Thank you very much for even being part of the show. I appreciate that. Yeah, but anyway, Vince ends it with airborne transmission through air, usually very hard to get enough infected material through airways, which is probably why. I mean, could that be a way to stop a fungal infection by somehow convincing its biology? And this is fantasy we're talking, so this could actually be a conversation, this could be a social interaction, to convince it to become airborne, which is less likely to allow it to spread, but it's the only way for it things to propagate. And then because we have very few things that actually propagate through the air, because they die out because they're unable to do so, they usually start to mutate into the best way to propagate itself. Like we know COVID-19 spread because, unlike the traditional flu virus, where a person expresses symptoms first and then spreads it, where people go, "Oh, you're coughing and hacking. Stay away from me." COVID instead was was you're infected, you can spread it, and then later you start getting suffering results of that. And we're going to get back into red markets and other things for the end. I should have done this in the beginning and cut you guys off, but I didn't because you're more brilliant than a little bit. Um, yeah, it could be that human beings we tend to be very reactive to things, and there could be a very social issues with people getting sick and individuals got like society um, cordoning off different people because they happen to have symptoms. And in a fantasy realm, symptoms could be eye color changes, things dripping out of people's mouths, their hair is different, they get sores on their body, uh, grayscale. Anybody? Right, from Game of Thrones. Vince says a zombie maggot you place inside the mouth of a fresh corpse to create a zombie. Hell's yes, hell yeah. What? I mean, if someone or a faction realizes they can do this, yeah. Vince says, how are malaria and sickle cell disease connected? People with SCT are not as affected by malaria compared to those with normal hemoglobin. Are you agreeing with me? Because I didn't say I was right. But maybe you looked it up. Okay. During people with SCT, sickle cell disease, not as affected by malaria compared to those with normal hemoglobin. During infection, those with SCT have 59% fewer parasites in their blood than people with normal hemoglobin. People with SCT also get rid of the parasites faster, which is and what is what a strange mutation to have that we could take for our own world building where like maybe I'm just making this up, maybe the reason why orcs are orcs is because it is a mutation amongst humanity that began like orcism may just be a divergent part of humanity, and they are that way because it made them immune to something that the rest of society in the fantasy realm is vulnerable to. Like orcs don't get zombification, right? That's a natural part of the world. They just don't become zombies. And maybe in your world it's because of orc blood. And on one hand, people look at them like they look at orcs as the end result of the bad days when the zombie wars were happening, but at the same time, humanity's like, "Hey, orc people, sorry for treating you bad. Maybe we kind of need you." And the orcs are just like, "Hell no! The way y'all treated us and then treat our families." And maybe that's something that comes up in humanity as well, right? Like your kids got your kids expressing orcism, right? And it's like, oh well, at least they'll live. Airborne transmissions usually works primarily indoors or when you are near a source for an extended period of time. COVID is not airborne; it is droplet transmission or foam-like transmission. No, no, I didn't. I didn't mention. I didn't. Hope I didn't erroneously connect COVID to airborne transmission. I was saying that it transmitted because people have it and are transmittable before you see symptoms rather than the flu, which is you get symptoms first and then people tend to stay away from you, like the common cold, right? When you're sick, people stay away from other sick people, but a disease can spread faster if people aren't expressing symptoms, right? Because then it spreads faster because you're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. Mike says, so taking something from the history and the modern world, Second Punic War, Rome defeated Carthage. They salted the earth so nothing would grow. What if salting the earth was because the zombie spore virus, grew on Carthaginian crops? The war was the first World War Z. Build from that. Yeah, hell yeah, hell's yeah. Vincent, I looked it up. Hell, I love that. Right? Like, what if an accident, air quotes accident, happened because of a society in your gaming world, and you come to find out that they used an accident, a part of nature that just happened to benefit them, and then they said, you know what, f this, we're just going to use it, we're just going to sow all the fields and just eliminate our enemies. It's like, oh no. And going back to the orcs, right? Like the orcs live in this they could literally have spread this out into and are extending their empire because they're like, hey, we're not affected by it, but you sure are. You can't eat the food and drink the water. As the PCs come across, you know, dead bodies that are chained down in a river, and the PCs are like, "What the heck?" And then all of a sudden, the bodies start moving, and they're just like, What is going on here? Why do they have these bodies floating in the water that undead bodies that are chained down?" And it's because downstream they're drinking the waters, and then all of a sudden the PCs are like, "Oh no, we've got to go back this way." Um, Mike says, "Yeah, I remember you talking about this before." Says, "So I homebrewed a ghoul fly. That's how dampiers are made in my world. The maggot turns you into a ghoul, and eating flesh keeps the maggot from killing the host." I love that. I mean, and again, with Vince's role playing game, I mean, who's to say that um, that there isn't something inside the brains or chests of hosts to kill people, maybe even to prevent them from spreading a virus or spreading its. I when the maggot when the ghoul fly in the brain wants to breed, do they just spew out the maggots onto the bodies of other hosts and stuff, and then those maggots then get into uh, you know spew it out into a bowl and start feeding it into the mouths of victims or something? That'd be pretty nasty. Ben says, yeah, maybe you have some kind of curse that prevents you from becoming undead. Yeah, so the Dompier has to feed the fly to survive? Exactly, exactly. Yeah, that it's like, yeah, it's pretty metal. Yeah. And ooh, you tell the PCs GMO zombie. You tell the PC that the enemy hasn't done hit point damage or anything, but the PCs wake up after being defeated and the enemy goes, "Yeah, it's inside you right now. And if you don't keep consuming something inappropriate, you will transform, and so you need to feed the thing inside you." And the PCs are like, like looking at their chests or trying to cough the thing out. It won't come out. They're just like, no. Mike's like, back to Punic zombies. Imagine a modern world that, like we do, creates a genetic crop to survive an environment, and mistakenly creates a host for the zombie virus, a spore. Eating the crops creates zombies. GMO zombies. You know what? I'm a vegan. I like my zombie infection to be free range. I don't really like the vat grown zombie virus. So yeah. Oh man, pretty eating the crops creates that would be nasty, but I love it. I absolutely love it. Which would make a very great motivator for a big bad evil guy to capture human beings for the only sole purpose of slowly transforming them into zombies to have complete control of them, and they're captured to be transformed. Now, vegan zombies, they eat away all the crops. We have to stop the zombie infection because it's actually devouring our food source, and the zombies get full and their stomachs they're bloaters, they're chest bursters. As they eat all the crops, all of a sudden it builds like some kind of like spore, something that carries on the air or whatever, right? And then all of a sudden they keep consuming our food source, and then boom, chest bursting, stomach guts everywhere, and then there's something out that's seeping into the ground or whatever. I love that. I love that idea. It's like, yeah, they're not attacking us, but they sure are attacking our food source. So, all right, there's a couple of threads of tabs I wanted to share with you guys. Okay, so this one is the role playing game Red Markets, and it is literally written and created as a economic capitalist. The worst aspects of all economic systems, capitalism most primarily, in a zombie apocalypse world, and it is a world in which the United States is 5 years later after zombie apocalypse, and humanity to the east of the Mississippi River is air quotes back to normal society. But you play a character that's past the west of the Mississippi into the middle of the United States, and you play someone known as a taker, and you go out into the red market to gather things to bring back to try to live in the protected enclaves. But you play a character that's constantly uh, trying to. You're not just trying to survive. You're trying to um, you don't want to tread water, you want to rise above, and you're looked down upon because you're one of these people that's a scavenger out inside of the in the red zones. And it's pretty interesting concept, listening to the podcasts and all that kind of stuff, where you have to spend your resources to upgrade your equipment and weaponry and everything, and you're constantly fighting against this capitalist system where in order to survive and achieve something, you have to go out into the dead lands, but going out into the dead lands costs you resources to do it. Uh, yeah, it's pretty interesting. So anyway, it's called Red Markets, and I like the idea that, like, you because listen, humanity would absolutely positively turn this into an economic system, right? Where it's just like, yeah, you're gonna have to go out into the dangerous locations and do this for us, right? So yeah, I think they say like the original book is like 500 plus pages or whatever. So anyway, I want to share that. Of course, we have The Last of Us, and we've got various images about that, and the the images of the mushrooms exploding out of the heads. A bunch of stuff on eBay and Etsy for some reason. I don't know if they legally sell that kind of stuff, but of course, it's also The Last of Us is an allegory for us as a society. So if you're someone who's not really into like zombies, but you like post-apocalyptic settings, uh, the television version of this is very much about that, where you have this main character Joel, who who's spoiler alert, his daughter dies, and then he meets this young girl that could possibly save humanity. And he doesn't want to get a bond with her. And over time, he does get a bond with her. And then he's given the choice: do you sacrifice her to save humanity, or do you save your is this now your second chance to be a father to this young girl and your daughter? And despite the fact that the rest of the world sucks, maybe it's just The Last of Us. Maybe it's just you and I, and we can go on, and then we can find some semblance of survival. And so that's what the show is about. That's so whenever you see a title for like a book or a show or whatever, you always know it goes off the rails if every decision does not lead back to your elevator pitch, which is The Last of Us. It's not called The Last of the Zombie Infection. It's called The Last of Us. And so it's about them. It's not really about the zombies, even though I know the television show people were kind of disappointed, like, well, we should have saw more cordyceps and whatnot. Lastly, we got some images here, about like gotta go to DeviantArt, gotta go to head past ArtStation and stuff like that. If you want, of course, don't steal people's art, but if you want to get some ideas to use for your role playing game, absolutely, as long as it's you and a bunch of other people, no big deal. So anyway, let me get back into here. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Who says, sadly, this is the last day I can join, but I am currently working again on my deck building shaman RPG. Finally, I'm making real progress. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Drew Fuzz says, Red Market sounds like something not for me. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Zombies are not for me, but capitalism is way worse. Yeah. Yeah. If you ever listen to the podcast is called RPPR, role playing public radio, and they talked about the design of the game Red Markets. They literally, the podcast was about the design of that role playing game, which I like world building, so I listened to it. And the guy who created it was like, yeah, he took all the worst parts of economic systems and just wrapped it into this game. And he even got, it's funny because he was not complaining, but he was talking about how the game hit people in bad ways, not because of the zombies, but because of the economic hardship of the game, and people were commenting on it who were economists, not necessarily role players. So yeah, absolutely. So Vince says, "Yeah, way to wrap it up." Yep, absolutely. So yeah, Druden, horrible. Uh, not nice to be like, "Hey, my character will never get up above because there's always something for sale." And in a listen, when you're talking about red markets, um, people make allusions to the fact that capitalism as an economic system is like selling your body, because many parts of our economic system are about selling our bodies, our time, our energy, our fatigue. And I'm not even going sexually, but yes, the way we look, the where we act, where we lived, our choices, and our health care and blah blah blah, all that, especially in US, is all wrapped around the commodification of our human bodies. And uh to role play that, it's like, I don't I get enough of this in real life. I get that, yeah. So anyway, thank you there, Vince. I know you gotta get back to your schedules off, because you're across the pond, across the across that ocean of blood. But good to have you here, so thank you very much. Anyway, Mike says, imagine a cult or society that willingly turned themselves into zombies to survive a famine, in the hope someone or something would eventually revert them back to living once the famine ends. I brought this up in terms of air quotes making necromancy a good thing, where you could have a knight's order that willingly the people turn into undead to protect the society, um even unto death. Like you said, maybe they do this to become this other thing. Maybe they have, maybe in the beginning they had their minds and their spirits were intact, but over time, as the famine has spread, they themselves are maybe losing their minds as well. And it's like a race against time, right? Sure, there's nothing for them to eat, they live in this lifeless world, but they also may try to, um because there's limited amount of time, they may be trying to send out emissaries or themselves, and it's like, we don't have time to be nice to you, we need to kidnap a bunch of people so we can get this ritual done so we can turn back to human again, right? Then says, I try to work again tomorrow even though I'm not fully healthy again. Ugh. Maybe that's not something to bring up on this show. But anyway, guys, um creating a world with we can do this pre-apocalypse, where this happens in your gaming world, maybe some corner of your gaming world this happens. This could be during the outbreak, or this could happen at the end, where this is years later and society has adapted to the darn thing, and things go on. So anyway, guys, we'll have third pillar Thursday tomorrow, third pillar exploration. We'll get into it then. I've got to take a big bio break right now, so so we were talking about biology and stuff. So guys, anyway, have a great one. Tomorrow we'll talk about exploration, delving through these places, and how maybe zombies themselves are a this was mentioned before Monday, where the zombies themselves are in and of themselves a and using monsters. I love using monsters as a exploration hazard, as an obstacle in the environment itself. Zombies make great dangerous obstacles in the realm. We'll talk about hordes and grapplers and runners and mounds and cascades and waves. We'll talk about all that kind of stuff. So anyway, guys, we will check you out tomorrow. Everybody have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace.